1977, George Lucas formed a legacy.
The Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
Inspired by mythology, his saga has become a passion for many.
Feel the Force around you.
His legend has become our story.
It's true. All of it.
One of resistance.
We are the spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the First Order down.
Rebellion.
Rebellion is built on hope.
And redemption.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
This is Star Wars Reactions.
Remember, the Force will be with you. Always.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Star Wars Reactions. We have an awesome show for you today. We're going to have a great time discussing the newest chapter of The Mandalorian. Of course, this one was called The Siege. Great episode. We got so much to say about it. It's going to be awesome. But let's get this show on the road. My name is Aaron Harris. I'm one of your hosts here. And joining me, Cara Dune to my Mandalorian, the David Motters. David, buddy, how's it going?
It's going good, man. I've been looking forward to discussing this. I always do. This one a little bit more, though. I really enjoyed this. So I'm really ready to react, and glad to be on with you tonight, my brother, and we'll have a good time.
Yes, we will. It's going to be great. It's going to be fun. I assume you and the family doing well?
Yeah, we're kind of moving into Thanksgiving break here. Kids don't have school this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, of course Thursday, and then Friday. I don't have that. I work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but I did take Friday off. So I'll have a long weekend and get caught up on some Star Wars content. So how's your crew doing?
Doing great. I pretty much have done the same thing as you. I'm working all week and taking Friday off. But everybody's doing good, enjoying their time off school and work and everything, and doing well. For those of you that don't know, we are recording this. Today is Tuesday, the 24th of November. So we are doing well. We're doing our Thanksgiving preparations. I will say this, we did get a new family member this week.
Oh, tell me more.
Well, we record last week, from when we're recording this last Thursday, we recorded our Thanksgiving special that's going to be coming out the day after this episode. And when I got off, and it's literally as soon as we were signing off, my friend, I got a text message from my wife with a picture of a dog.
Oh, boy.
And I walked out in the living room, and she goes, I need you to get off at 4 o'clock the next day. I said, why? She goes, because we got to pick him up. So we now have, along with our 9-month-old boxer pup Ahsoka, we now have an 11-month-old boxer pup who I promptly named Obi-Wan Kenobi.
You did? Your wife went for
it? She went for it.
Yes.
She knew it was the only way I'd allow it to happen. Matter of fact, if you hear barking in the background, that's them. Because Ahsoka never barked before, but Obi-Wan is a barker. So I got to break into that.
I love it. Both my dogs are here near me. They love it when I record on Tuesday nights with you. Mm-hmm. Dasher's right next to me, and I'm petting her. And of course, and I think maybe we told our listeners we adopted a dog from the Humane Society back in May, and it's Lucy, and she's right here laying on my foot. And the best way to describe her is Clifford the Big Red Dog, but actually tan. She has grown, and she's not even a year old. She'll be a year in February. But they both, I know, watch what will happen tonight, but they'll bark and growl and all that if they hear someone at the door and stuff. But they've never made noises here when I'm recording with you. So I think it's because they're kind of settled down for the night. So, but they really do love being here while you and I record. So it's fun.
Yeah, I understand. See, Obi-Wan's got some stuff to work through. He's 11 months, but in the last 6 months, he's had 6 different homes. Oh. So he's had a rough little life. So he's just now, we got him Friday night, so he's just now getting somewhat used to his surroundings, and he's not fond of men yet. So
Okay. Yeah.
he's got some warming up to do to me, but he's a good pup. He's a good pup. So if I could just get him to stop barking.
I can hear him.
So I don't know what's going on out there.
Aaron, it gives ambiance to our podcast.
It does. It's real life. This is life. We're not recording in a soundproof studio or anything like that. We're just regular guys in our living rooms, in our offices, in our bedrooms, just having fun. So
that's right.
All right. So we got a little bit. It was not a lot. Of course, we had Mando Monday again. I wasn't really. There wasn't a lot announced that I saw. I mean, there were a couple new items from Igloo, Mandalorian theme Igloo containers, which were pretty cool. Then they announced 2 vintage collection. If you like the 3 3/4 inch figures, the 2 vintage collection figures, which I was excited about. One is the Greef Karga. In his season 2 wardrobe, which was kind of surprising that it was in his season 2, but it is in his season 2 wardrobe. And the other is the child with the pram. It's actually apparently it's a scaled down version of what you get if you pre-ordered the Razor Crest ship. So,
okay.
But those are on pre-order if you can still get them. I know when I went to check Hasbro Pulse, they had already sold out there, but they're also supposedly on Amazon and I would say Big Bad Toy Store, I think, or maybe Entertainment Earth, one of those two, where you could still pre-order them. So I need to get in there and get that done. So
okay.
So I'm curious to see what's going to happen this coming Monday with our next Mando Monday reveal. So,
oh yeah,
pretty cool. Also, we just want to let you know, of course, this past weekend was the Rancho Obi-Wan virtual gala. This is, of course, was their big fundraiser they do every year. Normally, it's an in-person event there at Rancho Obi-Wan, but unfortunately, due to COVID, they had to cancel it all. But they had this huge virtual gala which you could buy tickets for and attend, and it from what I can see, it was very successful. From everybody, all the feedback I'm seeing online, it was very successful. Worked really well. I got to, because we were getting the dog and trying to get him used to the house, I didn't watch as much as I wanted. I got to watch a good portion of it, but what's great is it's still available to watch. So you can actually still buy a ticket and watch it for the next 30 days, which is cool.
Oh, I didn't know. I thought it was till the end of the month, till November 30th.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. November 30th.
Okay. And I was on Friday night, and I was on for the majority of it. There was only the last little bit on Friday night. I was so tired, and it was 11:30 going on midnight. Of course, 9 o'clock out west. And I really enjoyed it. Eli had 2 basketball games on Saturday.
Okay.
So just like you said, buddy, what I'm going to try to do probably, and of course I mentioned it in our intro, is probably tomorrow night, some on Thanksgiving, some on Friday, Saturday, is watch the coverage from Saturday, and that's what I love. I'm so thankful that by buying a ticket, like Steve Sansweet says, you have access to it through November 30th. So it gives me some time to just kind of go through it and watch all of it. Because I really enjoyed his interviews on Friday night. But like I said, we were just like you, right? You said it, buddy. We have life, and we've got kids, and we've got dogs and houses. And so there was no way I could do it on Saturday. But I was so, in fact, I had texted you back before the thing started on Friday. I said, are these available for a while? And sure enough, I looked at the Rancho Obi-Wan site, and it said, yes, if you've purchased a ticket, you can watch it through November 30th, and then they'll take it off. But yeah, I'm going to get through all of that and really try to just have some fun and watch those interviews.
Oh, absolutely. I plan on doing that this week too, picking up the pieces that I missed and watching, and thought that was pretty cool. And I know we had in our last episode when we were talking about it before it happened, we were talking about the wine testing.
Yeah.
And what was happening with the wine testing, whether it be like little hotel bottles from your mini fridge of Skywalker Ranch wine. But we actually got a message from one of our listeners named Amber, who actually said she did participate in the virtual wine testing. And they actually sent them 2 full-size bottles of wine
Oh, wow.
for the wine testing. She said there were no mini bottles, and which was pretty cool. And she said also during the testing they got to see some videos about the land being built up at the vineyard, and that they normally wouldn't get to see if they weren't at the gala. So that was pretty cool.
Wow.
It was nice hearing that. So
I'm so glad that Emily,
Amber.
Or who did?
Amber.
Oh, okay. The wine testing. Wine tasting was Amber who got a hold of you.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Amber.
Thank you, Amber. Awesome. Thanks for that, filling us in on that. We appreciate that. Other than that, there's not really a lot of news. Nothing going on. Just a lot of people hyping up for next episode of The Mandalorian, all because of this episode. So, you know what? Let's go ahead and jump into our review and see what we got going on. All right, here we go with Chapter 12, The Siege. Now, of course, this episode was written by Jon Favreau, directed by Greef Karga himself, Carl Weathers, a.k.a. Apollo Creed, if you like the Rocky movies. Great job there. Was released November 20th of 2020. This is the 4th episode of Season 2. Awesome episode. In this episode, we actually get to see Mando and Baby Yoda return to Navarro in looking for additional repairs to the Razor Crest, as well as hiding out for a bit while they get that done. Once there, of course, they run into Greef Karga and, of course, Cara Dune. A lot of things have changed since we last were on Navarro, which was last season. Empire's been run out. Things have been cleaned up. It's actually a bustling city now. We see people everywhere, shops set up. Everything looks really nice. And come to find out, Greef is running the show, and Cara's the marshal of the city. She's the new marshal, and she's been taking down bad guys left and right, and keeping everything in check, and really cleaned up the city really well. Well, Greef actually asked Mando for help, because on the other side of the planet's doing great, but on the opposite side of the planet, there's one small Imperial facility that is still, apparently, from what they believe, has a skeleton crew there and is still operational. So he wants Mando's help to get in, destroy the base, so their empire will be completely gone from Navarro and making it a hub of commerce for the world. Unfortunately, things don't go as planned. They get there, and of course it's Mando, Greef, Cara, and Mythrol from the pilot episode, who is working off his debt to Greef Karga. They get there and they find out it is a little heavier armed than they anticipated, a lot more troops than they thought, and it's not an abandoned outpost. It's actually a research facility where we actually see holograms that are discovered of Dr. Pershing, who also remember from Season 1, talking about projects and M counts and everything. And it appears we have a cloning facility, which is really, really interesting and really cool. So fighting ensues. Lots of stormtroopers get killed. TIE fighters in the air, speeders. A lot of fun, a lot of action, and ultimately the base does get destroyed. And the child and Mando escape Navarro to continue their search for Ahsoka Tano. Bum, bum, bum.
Yes.
There we go. So with that, let's get into our initial thoughts. David, now when you first watched this episode on the 20th, when it was released, what did you think?
Oh, I loved it then, and I watched it again tonight, and I love it even more. I just really, really enjoyed this episode. I think it was, there's several reasons why. One is I was really looking forward to Mando meeting back up with Cara Dune and Greef Karga, and that's because of the history they have and everything they went through season one, and I really enjoyed seeing that, and so I was excited to see them back together on an adventure. I liked, like you mentioned it, I liked, hearing about and seeing the changes on Navarro and about all the new challenges the New Republic is facing. Now we see, I think, is it Carson Travis or whatever the captain's name is there we saw from a previous episode. He's talking about all these challenges in the Outer Rim, so it was neat to hear about that. I love the team, of Greef Karga, Cara Dune, Mando, and Mythrol going to the base, and it wasn't just killing some stormtroopers and blowing up the base. It was, like you said, it was the other things our heroes learned about that was tension filled and really cool, and we can talk about that more in depth. And to again just get through initial thoughts, and towards the end of the episode, I loved seeing the Razor Crest back in action, finally getting some fine tuning after everything it's been through the last couple episodes. And just seeing it in action and Baby Yoda's laughter and excitement as Mando's battling those TIE fighters in the sky above Navarro, that was just so cool. And so I really enjoyed that ending. Really, really excellent episode.
Excellent. I absolutely agree with you. This was a tremendous episode. I had so much fun watching this. This really, to me, I had a real feeling of, it felt a lot like A New Hope for me, with them running around the Imperial base, dodging stormtroopers. The reactor, the coolant they wanted to shut down, kind of resembled the tractor beam thing that Obi-Wan was crawling around. It to me had a real original trilogy feel to it, and I loved it. I loved that about this episode. There was so much awesome. There was so much great stuff in this. It was action packed from the beginning, and it to me just it was great to me. I will honestly say, to date, this is probably one of my favorite episodes. If not my favorite, because it was just fun. It was just so much going on. It was just so much fun, and I loved it. I loved it. So, great episode. Let's get going. Of course, to me, the best part of the episode was when the mission finally got going. And they're on Navarro. They're starting to infiltrate the base. Everything was just incredible from that point on. And of course, there's a lot of scenes. There's several scenes before that when we get to see the beginning when they're trying to get to Navarro and they decide to go. Some bit of humor in there when Mando's got the child inside this little crawl space, and he keeps telling him to put the red wire where the blue wire was and the blue wire where the red wire was, but not put them together because it'll be bad. And he tells him a couple times, and then finally, child just kind of sticks them together and kind of shocks himself. I mean, that was just priceless in my opinion. I got a good laugh out of that. It was a good way to open up the show and laugh. What did you think of that scene?
Well, absolutely. These cute scenes with Baby Yoda just are I think they're in this episode definitely ramping up a bit. We talked, and I've heard other, podcasts and Star Wars fans say that the first few episodes it kind of kept Baby Yoda at bay because the show is called The Mandalorian, but Baby Yoda, I mean, not only steals macaroons, blue macaroons, but he literally steals this show at the beginning. And like I just said at the end, when he's in the cockpit there with Mando, it's just priceless. But at the beginning here, with the with the blue and the red wires, that was just great. Like I said, I'll talk about that a little bit more in the parenting / psychology corner, or the psychology corner. But yes, overall, it's so cute. Oh gosh, I love that kid.
Oh, everybody does, and that's what's amazing about it. And you're right; they have ramped up his use more in these first episodes. I think the beginning of the season it was more of focusing on. Remember, this is about the Mandalorian, not about the child. He just happens to be a part of the story. I thought they did a good job redirecting it, but now they're bringing him back in, incorporating him in the story, making it funny. I loved it too. How when Mando decides to go, he finds another babysitter by dropping him off at the school, which used to be the pub where they all used to hang out. So it's now a school,
right?
Taught by a protocol droid.
Yes.
Incredible, and I thought that was awesome in and of itself, because when you're improving society, you're improving things. What do? You educate your children. That's what they were doing. They were educating their children to help improve Navarro. I thought that was a great story element that they used there, and I love the fact that they left the child there.
Yeah.
And it was funny because he's like, Mando, of course, is like, where I go, he goes. And Cara's like, just leave him here. He's going to be fine.
Right.
It's like no, he's not going everywhere.
No, I loved him being in class. Little shout out, Chris Bartlett, who played Zero in episode 6 last season. He also played the Kubaz, who plays the flute at the beginning of episode 1 in season 1. He's in there as that protocol droid, so that was pretty cool.
Excellent. Very true. Very true. And that was great to have him back participating in it, and seeing him at and I like how we're seeing him in different characters too, and each one has their own unique characteristics. And he does a pretty good protocol droid. I'll give him that.
Well, he's done C-3PO at Star Wars weekends. In fact, I was like, wait a minute. I was listening to something and I'm like, I got on Twitter and I sent a tweet to him and I said, was that you on stage in 2011? That's when I told the story about me and Eli and my wife and daughter meeting Anthony Daniels as we're walking into the front of Hollywood Studios. Well, later on that day, I went to one of the shows there at the Premier Theater that you and I talk about all the time, and we just loved being there. I asked Chris Bartlett, was that you in the C-3PO costume when Anthony Daniels was standing there on stage and looking at you in the C-3PO costume? He goes, he tweeted back to me, he goes, it's true, all of it. So
love it.
That was a great
response.
That was really neat. And so to see him, yes. And he also played C-3PO earlier this year on the Lego Masters show on Fox.
Okay.
They did an episode. They did different themes every episode, and this one was a Star Wars themed one. So they had an R2 unit out there, and they had C-3PO, and that was Chris Bartlett in the C-3PO costume. Amazing one.
Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. So he's got his history with Star Wars, which is awesome. So
yeah. So
very cool. Very, very cool. So let's talk. We're talking about the return to Navarro. We talked about the school. Of course, Greef Karga in pretty much running everything, which pretty much is what he was doing before. He was just doing it, he was running one half while the Empire and the client were running the other. So not much has changed for him except for he's just now running everything. I think the biggest change is for Cara Dune. We see a lot of growth in her. She stayed on Navarro, and she's become the marshal. She's the law now there in Navarro, which I thought was awesome. I mean, they even open up the first shots on Navarro, or of her entering what used to be the Mandalorian culvert there in Navarro, and beating up a bunch of Pontababas.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
which I thought was pretty cool.
That was really cool. Yeah, the Aqualish, all those guys.
Yes.
Never thought I'd see so many in my lifetime.
No, neither did I. I mean, they worked great. She got to put a lot of her skills to work. I mean, she was a very successful MMA fighter. So I'm pretty sure all those stunts were her. So, which was pretty stinking awesome.
Yeah.
Just rolling around, picking people up, throwing them around. It was just a great fight scene, a great way to establish her, without telling us, establish her as something important. You didn't know when you first saw that scene, you didn't know if she was the law or if she was bounty hunting or what exactly she was doing. You just knew she was kicking some serious tail.
Yeah. Well, and I think, right, buddy, back in season 1, it was I think episode 7, The Reckoning, right? Because episode 8, I think, was Redemption. You see a scene there on Navarro, well, outside the school. Like you said, it used to be the watering hole, and where Greef Karga would hand out the bounty pucks. There's a scene where she goes out there and she just picks up the Mandalorian. That's her. They didn't put a body double in there or a stunt double, and she just picks. Of course, I don't know that was Pedro Pascal. It would have been. They've got 2 to 3 other people, including exactly who fill in, and so whoever it was. I mean, you see her. She leans over, boom, picks that guy up like a rag doll, and it was impressive. So she was doing it last year too, all her own stunts. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, she's done a great job doing that. So I have no doubt that was her. But it was good. Then we find out she's the marshal and she's cleaned up the town. The honest opinion, how do you feel they progressed Cara Dune's character in this show?
Well, I like it. She has that history as a drop trooper, right? I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
From off and on, right?
Yep.
And here she is, continuing to do her part, trying to help. I guess, like anything, we want to see character development. In this one, she really has. Of course, at the end of season 1, she stayed, and she's played her part. And in fact, Greef Karga, again, just watching the episode again tonight before we got on, he is talking to Mando when he arrived. He goes, "Look, I give her credit for really cleaning this place up." So it was really good to hear that. I also love seeing her cleaning up the Aqualish in there. That was really neat, and it was interesting to hear that New Republic X-wing guy again. I think it's Carson Travis. He was there with Trapper Wolf a couple episodes ago, talking to her at the end about possibly joining the New Republic and how they need help at a local level. I don't know. That might be a little seed planted, and that might come back around here in time. But I mean, there's a perfect out for a spinoff right there. For Cara Dune, but it's neat to see her doing this. She does talk a little bit about loss. She says she lost everybody, not one person, but everybody. So, kind of a somber moment for her there at the end of the episode. But I wonder if a few little seeds are being planted for her character.
It'd be interesting if it was. There's a lot they could do with that character. It's a very popular character too, so she's a great great. I would love to see more with Cara Dune, and I'm glad you brought it up because that whole interaction toward the end with the X-wing pilot that we've seen, he's just, and they're talking about Alderaan, and he's like, I've read your record. I mean, we need you. We could use you, and he's just laying it all out for her right then and there about how much of a benefit that she could be to the Republic, and that after she turns him down, and he lays that medal on the ground. I'm not. That medal threw me for a minute 'cause I'm not sure what we were looking at. Was it a award, a New Republic? Like the medals that Han and Luke got after Yavin. Was this a New Republic medal, or was that a New Republic law badge?
That's the thing. I haven't looked it up. I haven't even gone to Wikipedia to see the answer. You wonder. Both of those would be, almost like here's a badge if you want to start doing this. On the other hand, you wonder if it is an award for all of her cleaning up, like a New Republic medal to people who really help the New Republic and bring peace to different planets, I haven't, and there's nothing in the, episode guides either, quite honestly. They're so minimal compared to what we got with Rebels Recon. And even with Resistance, Star Wars Resistance, this is just a few concept pictures and then a short little article by Daniel, what's Dan's last name, on StarWars.com, Dan Brooks. He gives 5 highlights, and stuff, but nothing was said about the medal, unless, I don't know, I'm sure one of our listeners knows already, but I didn't track it down, buddy.
Yeah, I was having a hard time finding anything on that as well. So it would be nice I'll have to put some feelers out on that, see what I can find, but yeah, I thought that was very interesting. It was very unique, very pretty. I can't wait for somebody to release that to buy, because that would just be nice to have. Just a nice medal. It'd be a nice pin at Disney, y'all. If y'all are listening, you need to make that into one of your Disney pins that I can pick up next time I'm over there.
No, as I say, I don't know if it's a medal or if it's a badge, and but I'd like it. It's yes, it's nicey.
It's nicey. All right, so we're about to get into all the action of storming the base. So what we're going to do before we do, though, we are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron and David here. We are discussing Chapter 12 of The Mandalorian, The Siege. And we are just getting into the awesomeness. To me, what is my favorite part of the episode is the infiltration of the Imperial base. Like I said in my opening statement, to me this felt like the original trilogy infiltrating the Imperial base. It had all the looks of them running around the Death Star, the corridors, the elevator we see the stormtroopers come rushing out of, or stormtroopers in general. It was Imperial stormtroopers. It was awesome. So, and it all starts, with a little bit of comedy. They pull up in the speeder, and the Mythril's trying to get him in, and he can't get in. So Mando flies up, and next thing you know, you got a stormtrooper body hit the ground.
Oh, I love
from
that.
Way up on top of the cliff. It was just awesome. And when they get to the top he sends the elevator down for them, and when they get out of the elevator up on the shuttle deck, they walk out, and of course there's Mando with like 5 or 6 stormtrooper bodies lying there, and he's like, "This isn't a skeleton crew. It isn't as empty as we thought."
Yeah.
But then they continue into the base, get to the control room where we have a lone Imperial officer sitting there, almost reminiscent, with the lone Imperial officer sitting there, kind of like the lone New Republic officer on the prison transport. Difference is, Mando didn't stick up for the Imperial. Cara Dune just walked in and killed him.
Right. Took him out.
She has no problem doing that.
Yeah.
And they find of course, they find out where the coolant area is, so they make it there. And this is where we got that nice little spindle thing that kind of resembled the tractor beam controls from A New Hope, and they send the Mythrol out for that. And of course, they get that done, and they go to escape, and then they find these unique texts there, and this is where the things start to get what's going on here? Things aren't what they appear to be.
No.
What you say is true from a certain point of view.
Well, they're dressed like Dr. Pershing. They have those cloning suits on, right? That's what a lot of people were talking about in season 1 when they first saw Dr. Pershing. They're with Werner Herzog's character, the client, and these two guys, again, watching it again for the second time, I'm looking at them, and yes, they have the same symbol on their shoulders as Dr. Pershing. So, I don't know, do they come from Camino? They're cloners, though, and so yes, it's very clear. You can see that they're not dressed like the Imperial guy, like you mentioned just a few minutes before. They're dressed differently. They're cloning.
Oh yes, definitely they are. And this is where they find out that it's not just a base; it's a research facility. Yeah. And they find the message from Pershing, which to me was probably the most interesting part of this thing, because he's talking about this test, and it worked for a little bit, then failed, and the people, the quote unquote experiments were showing promise, but then they would just die, and they were out of samples, so they need a new blood sample from the asset, and of course everybody knows the asset is the child. So obviously there's some things going on there, but what struck me the most was he was talking about, he used the phrase M count. The blood didn't hold the M count. We talking midi-chlorians again?
It has to be, and it's a neat way to bring it back in without saying that word that was controversial back in episode 1, right? But it's fascinating to hear Dr. Pershing say that, and I guess my question to you is, what do we see in the vats? What do we see in there? Are we looking at what we see in Exegol? See the Snokes in there? I've heard different people say different things, but a lot of people thought that it looks like well, perhaps what happened to Snoke, right? Which is when the M count that you were talking about is so high, and you put it into a clone, can the clone handle it? I heard some people saying that's why Snoke has the scarring in the head, the eyes, the face, the body. There is some forceability in Snoke because of the cloning process, and having some of the Emperor's DNA in there. But I get a sense these are probably similar to what we see on Exegol years later, and that there's this long-term cloning process, and that these things in those cloning tubes were maybe early versions of Snoke, or not necessarily Snoke, but just of clones that just couldn't handle it, right? Couldn't do it. And similar to what we see at the end of The Rise of Skywalker, which you and I reviewed with Randy Theory back a while back, and back in May even. Yeah. So who do you think's in the vats?
Yeah, I've heard so many theories about who's in the vats. And of course it doesn't tell us at all who's in the vats. I've heard theories from it's first versions of Snoke to its an attempted clone of Palpatine to just some random Jedis. It's or random force sensitive people. It's hard to. I mean, we could sit here and guess all night who it is,
Right.
but it definitely was interesting. That is for sure, because we had several compartments there that had bodies in them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you never get a good enough shot to see any identifying marks or anything. You can just tell it's a humanoid life form. That's pretty much it.
Right.
They leave you in that mystery.
Yes, exactly. Right. Keep it mysterious.
Keep it, yeah, exactly. They do keep it mysterious. So they, when they realize what all's going on, they decide to split up. They need to tell Mando to get back to the city as quick as they can and secure the child, and they'll make their escape. So Mando flies out the volcano. Essentially, is what he does. He flies out the volcano and flies off to the city. Meanwhile, Karga and Cara and Mythrol, they make it back to the shuttle deck, and they get pinned down by stormtroopers. And of course, Cara Dune and all her drop trooper glory ends up hot wiring a Imperial troop transport, heavy armored troop transport, and making their escape. Now, this scene to me was awesome. I loved how they got the transport, and literally she just drove it straight off the deck. And they just fell down the cliff. And of course, I don't know why I didn't see it coming, but of course they land on the speeder that they drove over on.
Oh, I love it.
And Greef is like, was that my speeder? Was that my speeder?
That was Mythrol. Mythrol said that.
Mythrol said that. Sorry, Mythrol. Was that my speeder?
Oh, I just loved it.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
And to me, this whole scene was reminiscent of almost like the chase on in Rebels when they're trying to rescue Sabine's dad. There at the beginning of season 4, when you have all the speeder bikes and the transports. Only difference is the speeder bikes in this are the ones getting beat up by the transport who we want to escape.
Exactly.
So it was fun seeing that. Then, of course, we got more of the TIE fighters that make their escape, and then they're being chased by TIE fighters. And, you think it's over for them, then out of the blue, here come Mando and the child in the Razor Crest, and they blast the TIE fighters out of the sky.
Oh.
And what did you think of? And I know you mentioned you liked this earlier. What did you think of this fight scene? I mean, it wasn't a space battle dogfight, but it was a nice dogfight in atmosphere. What did you think about that?
Yeah, like I said, watching this a second time, I literally have experienced, like what you said. It's very much episode 4. I loved last week when you said the episode reminded you of an episode of the Rebels, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you said this, absolutely, and later on I talk about all the Easter eggs, and a lot of them are in reference to episode 4. This scene is so cool, not only with the speeder bikes coming down and wiping out and a few keep going, but then it's like I've heard some people, I'm not going to take credit for it, so they're like, well, this is like a trench run. Here's the TIE fighters coming after the good guys. And that's episode 4. And it was so cool. And watching Greef Karga shoot at them, seeing Mythrol in the front seat with her, and he's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? When the 2 speeder bikes come up on either side of the troop transport, incredible. I love she crushes the guy and she's just like, woo, just loving it, and then, oh my gosh, Aaron, the way the last scout trooper got eliminated, holy mackerel, that happened. Maybe it didn't hurt. Maybe it was just evaporated immediately. So maybe it didn't. But incredible scene, and then the tension too, right? Because when the gun turret that Greef Karga is shooting gets taken out, then here comes what is it? Two to three TIE fighters, and then all of a sudden, reminiscent of Han, coming in at the end of Episode 4 and saving the day. He comes in and saves the day for them. So, yeah, exactly like you said, just a ton of Easter eggs from episode 4 layered in here. So I loved it. I loved this last scene, and like you said, it's just fun. Whereas I feel like in the last episode, I love seeing Bo-Katan, but I feel like there's all these expectations put on that character. Whereas in this episode, there's not. There's no expectations. It's we know Greef Karga and Cara Dune. We're learning a little bit more about them, but it's a fun adventure, and like you said, very reminiscent of running the hallways of the Death Star and turning the shield off and all that. In this case, turning off the cooling tubes, and so I loved it. It's like you said, out of the 2 seasons, this is right up there. This episode. Especially after last week, I thought, man, are they going to have just as good an episode? And they did. They did.
No, they certainly did. They certainly did. And it was a great episode, and I'm glad they did it. And one of my favorite things from this dogfight, too, is, after they blow up the first ship, the TIE fighter, and Mando comes the Razor Crest comes sweeping down over the troop transport. Everybody's celebrating inside the troop transport. Yes, yes. And it cuts to the Razor Crest, and Mando turns and looks at the child and goes, "Hang on, kid."
I love it.
And then starts, all these crazy maneuvers. And if you look, you see child sitting there behind him, got his hands up in the air like he's on a roller coaster.
Exactly.
And it was great. He's just cooing away, having a great old time. And then once it's all said and done, he spits up. If that's not a tension breaker, I don't know what is.
Yes, the little blue macaroons. I saw a tweet from Jonah Marie Macias talking about the $50 ones, and I loved your response. I found these, for a lot less. I saw your response on Twitter.
Just go over to Publix. They had them there.
Yeah.
That was my Publix bakery right there. I wasn't even looking for them. I walked over to get some donuts for breakfast, and I'm standing there while they're putting them in the box, and I look over and went, "Hey, well, that didn't take long."
That's right. No, I love that last scene. It's just incredible. And seeing the Razor Crest back, it looked like to really, full functioning, after the last couple episodes. And so I'll talk a little bit more too about Baby Yoda flying with Mando as well in my psychology corner. But yes, for now, I loved that ending. I loved it, and I loved them cheering down on the ground. Especially seeing Mythrol going, yeah, yeah. It's just he's pumped. The guy froze him, but he still loves seeing TIE fighters blowing up. So that was pretty cool.
Can't say I blame him.
No. Oh.
It was really good, really good. Oh, yeah, of course, that's pretty much how the episode ends, and we're pretty much done there at that point. Let's get into our final thoughts here on the episode. David, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with your final thoughts?
Oh, definitely. Like I said, this was an excellent episode, not only because of all the action and adventure, which, we're used to seeing in these, but also the intrigue. You and I talked about the intrigue of all the cloning going on there in that facility, but also, at the very end, seeing Moff Gideon and Dark Troopers. Little side note, we do have confirmation, I believe, that those are, because I've heard a few other people talking about how you can put the closed captions on for this. I don't do that. And then I believe also there's for the seeing impaired. I've heard the voice of the person who does it. It's the same person for all the episodes, but at the very end there, the person, the woman describing it, describes them as dark troopers. So I just wanted people to know, our listeners to know, you can turn that function on, where you choose different languages. You can turn that on, and so you do get some of that information. But that tension of what's going on with this cloning, also with Moff Gideon, these dark troopers, all that. Yeah, seeing that at the end ups the tension even more, knowing Moff Gideon's, not only coming from Mando and Baby Yoda, but now we know there's a tracking device on the Razor Crest. And of course, Moff Gideon wants to extract blood from the asset, from Baby Yoda. A little side note, you see who put that, we see the culprit, I believe, that put the tracking device was Mimbanese, right? He's a Mimban. And working for, yeah, we do, yeah, because at the very end we see his hologram, he's talking to the Imperial officer and stuff, that he had put that tracking device there. So, the episode leaves me wanting more, and that's always a good thing, always a good sign. And so those are just some of my final thoughts there. I could throw in Easter eggs really too here as final thoughts. Maybe that'd be good, and let you bounce into final thoughts. Again, I don't get credit for this. I saw people post this on Twitter. The IG-11 statue on Navarro, they have them there as they're walking into, again, what Aaron described as the canteen of the pub. It's now the school. As they're walking in, I didn't see it the first time I watched. I was looking at the Jawas down there near Cara Dune and Mando as they're walking into the place. But on second viewing, you see it there, and it looks like a tribute to IG-11 and what he did with his sacrifice. So that was really cool. The speeder bikes and sounds really reminded me of episode 6, speeder bikes and sounds. Obviously in season 1 we had speeder bikes there as well, but I just really enjoyed them in this. Greef Karga's battle with the ties, very reminiscent of Luke and Han's battle with the ties in episode 4, right? And tracking them in and trying to shoot at them. You mentioned this, when Mythrol is turning off the cooling tubes, we hear the same sounds as when we hear Obi-Wan turning off the tractor beam in the Death Star, kind of that kind of sound. Just really cool. I listened for it and could hear it right there in the sounds, or in the soundtrack. Moff Gideon's ship coming overhead, right? Like Vader's in episode 4. Again, they don't have it go as long as Vader's because you don't want to outdo Vader's in episode 4, but I thought that was very reminiscent. You said it, the M count, very much a reference or Easter egg back to episode 1 and Qui-Gon, talking to Anakin. I think, and I believe talking to the Jedi Council about it. The cloning experts in the base, are like those in episode 2, dressed like Dr. Pershing. The workers with Moff Gideon at the end, I was looking at them again, and they're dressed like the workers on Eadu, I think I'm saying, or Edu, where we see Jyn Erso's dad, working on the Death Star, and so I was looking at them, and then some really sharp Star Wars fans noticed during a battle scene, excuse me, a crew member, and I don't know. Tonight I didn't stop it, but when I watched it on, I think Saturday or Sunday, I noticed that they had not digitally removed it yet. I think it's at 1854. Did you happen to see this, Aaron, online?
Yes, the crewman standing in the back.
Yeah, with the watch on, and even Paul Bateman, who is a really huge Star Wars fan, big Ralph McQuarrie guy. I saw him post something on Twitter, a new action figure, which was basically that guy, just his half of him. And that was pretty funny. But I thought that was a neat little Easter egg that they'll probably, digitally remove here in time. And again, I went and checked it out, saw it right there. I'd stopped it. So that was kind of funny. Funny little crew member Easter egg there. So there you go. Just some of the Easter eggs we see there. I'm sure there's more.
Oh yeah, you forgot about the. You mentioned the ship, but you didn't mention entirely the ship that Gideon was on.
Okay.
That was also in Star Wars Rebels.
Mm. I was
The
wondering.
the
That, yeah.
Arquitens class command cruiser. We see that in Rebels several times in different episodes, including I want to say was let's see here. I got a list right here. Of course it's in Battlefront 2. It's in Star Wars, so several video games, but it's in the episode Rebel Resolve, which was where it first was seen. Then it was seen on Siege of Lothal, Brothers of the Broken Horn, Wings of the Master. There's a whole bunch that it was seen on Ghost of Geonosis. It was even seen in Zero Hour, Fool's Hope. I mean, there's so many episodes that it was seen in. Then, of course, it was even in some of the comics, some of the Dr. Aphra comics, and so on. So, again, a well-established Imperial cruiser we see there. So, pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, kind of like last week, that Gazanti class Imperial ship that the guys were on, that
Yep.
Catan and the crew. Yeah, so they're definitely we're seeing stuff from, the different types of Imperial ships. So, thanks for helping me out. I didn't take the time to look, but I knew the ship design was similar, to stuff we've seen. But thank you for the assist.
Oh, you're welcome. I mean, that's what I enjoyed about that particular one is because that's the ship that when Ezra and Sabine are sitting on the dish, that's the type of ship that's closing in
Yeah.
on him, and he just kind of waves at him.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I recognize that right off the bat.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's cool. That is cool.
So
Um,
a lot of history with that design ship. So it was great seeing that. I loved this episode. Like I said, this is by far one of my favorite episodes that we've seen, if not my favorite. I could go back, sit down, and watch this one time and time and time again and not get bored because it just feels so much like A New Hope. And New Hope is my favorite of the movies.
mm,
And the whole infiltration of the base, running through the base. I'll even say the bridge over the lava pit that we see when they're going going in there to try to destroy everything
yeah.
reminded me of the Void game we did at downtown at Disney Springs with Dan Zier and his son.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. When we did Secrets of the Empire.
Yeah, that was. I kept wanting to say Shadows of the Empire, and I knew that wasn't right. Yeah, when we did the VR experience, Secrets of the Empire, that whole lava pit thing, it was to me very reminiscent of that, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
there's so many little connections to make here. It was just so much fun. This definitely it goes down as, if not my favorite, in the top 3 that we've had so far. So great episode in my book. Great. Of course, we do grade each episode as we review them. Grade it with an A, B, C, D, or F, just like if you were in school. So for me, I loved this episode. I mean, there was nothing this episode could do wrong. It was great. It was fun. I enjoyed everything about it. We have a standard we kind of measure against from as many years as we do this. And we have done this together, David. So I'm not willing to shoot it at an A plus, but it is definitely as close to an A plus as you can get. I'm definitely going with an A on this. How about you? How did you feel? And how did you grade the episode?
Yeah, I kept, it's funny because initially after I watched it once on Friday, and again, couldn't really take it in as well as I wanted to. I had a little bit of free time at work, which is pretty rare. I initially gave it a B plus. And now after watching it a second time, thinking about it, processing it, I went to an A minus, but all things considered, I'm going to go with an A with like you. I just I'm telling you, the second time I watched this, I fell in love with it even more. There's so much in it. It is absolutely episode 4. Now, like I've heard a lot of people on podcasts talk about their favorite Star Wars movie, and most people, the bulk of people, say The Empire Strikes Back. That is number 2 for me. A New Hope is number 1. You and I've talked about this before. So it's number 1 for me. It started it all. And this episode was so reminiscent of episode 4, which, again, in my book is just incredible. I am really curious about, of course, what we heard last week in episode 3 about Ahsoka and what that looks like. And when I start to put Ahsoka together with Dark Troopers in my brain, again, we're not going to speculate, but I'm just kind of putting some things together in my head. Just the idea of seeing Ahsoka in live action and doing different things, that, I guess what? We're halfway through the season. We've got 4 episodes left. I got it. I feel it in my bones, buddy, that we're going to have an A+. So right now, I'd say this is an A. Incredible, like you said, really close to an A+. But yeah, just incredible.
Very good, very good. So we did get a message from one of our listeners, Daniel Contreras. He messaged us via Facebook and wanted to share his thoughts on The Siege. And actually had a quick thought about it. And he asked, since there's a good chance that the Mandalorian will unite the child with, quote unquote, his people very soon, does that mean we could see the end of the Baby Yoda storyline? I'm of two minds on this, as the character adds so much fun and heart to the show, and at the same time, there's only so much they can do with the character as is. I mean, I've already heard some people who think the food-related jokes are getting old at this point. What are your thoughts?
What do you think? Do you want to go first, or?
Well, this whole movie, or this whole series, has been tightly related to, a lot of people have been comparing it to an old Oriental series, so Wolf and the Pup or something like that. I think that's what it was called. Which basically follows a samurai taking care of a child, which essentially is what we have here. I think, honestly, I think the story ends when the child leaves. I don't believe just because we meet up with Ahsoka Tano eventually, whether it's in the next episode or whether it's episodes down the road, I don't think meeting with Ahsoka Tano is the end of Mando's story with the child. And I feel it goes, my gut tells me it goes a lot further than that. So that's what I think. How about you, buddy?
Yeah, I would just, as you were talking, I was thinking about before the season started, back in, maybe September. I remember hearing, kind of like, the press junkets and stuff. Obviously, they couldn't do it, but kind of like on Zoom, and hearing Giancarlo Esposito talking not about season 3 of Mandalorian, but 4 seasons. We do have confirmation that I think the end of this month, maybe right now, that Jon Favreau and Filoni were going to get working and I think be able to start filming. I guess it all depends on what the rules are in the state of California where they filmed this in Manhattan Beach. But we know season 3 is confirmed, and Giancarlo Esposito was talking about even a season 4. So I think he's in the know. And I'm with you. The popularity of Baby Yoda, I don't know. I can't see them not having that, even in season 3 and 4. I could speculate on what I would think would happen in terms of Jedi and finding his kind, and would it really fit for the baby, and so on and so forth. But I could see them, we only have 4 episodes left of this, all of next season, a lot more adventures. and really bring it down to an end in season 4. I mean, they could do it after season 3 as well, but I hear what Daniel's saying and what he's been hearing. I haven't gotten tired of the food jokes. I love levitating the cookies over to himself and always wanting to eat, and so reminiscent of, feeding my kids who seem to, what do we say, always have hollow legs. That's where the food goes. So I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that he's there. They could end it after season 3 and have a 4th season and see how it goes with a different storyline. And depending on the feedback there, does it flow into a season 5 or into an actual movie? So yeah.
I can understand. I can see that line of thinking too. My only concern with that is what has driven this series. What has made this series popular? It has been the child.
Yeah.
When you talk about season 1, when I was working at my day job, before we all started working from home because of Corona, when we were in the office, nobody on my team, minus my supervisor, was a Star Wars fan. But when Mandalorian came out, all they could talk about was the child.
Right.
They didn't care about Star Wars. They never watched Star Wars. I don't even know if half of them had even seen any of the movies. But when Mando came out, all of a sudden, all of them were Mando fans because they loved the child.
Yeah.
They every Friday they'd come in and talking about the child. I mean, it's I see a struggle going forward if they were to do this, drop the child. But
yeah, agreed.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We will definitely see. So we appreciate you writing in, Daniel. Daniel also said wanted to say to keep up the great work. That Star Wars Reactions is one of his favorite podcasts to listen to, and we appreciate the support, Daniel. Thank you so much. Make sure you check out Daniel too, because he actually has a great website set up. It's called, you can check it out, Star Wars this.com. He actually is gathering all the links and all the information on as many Star Wars podcasts as he can get in one place. So if you're looking, when you get done with our show, if you're looking for more great shows to listen to, check out his website, because he's adding, as he finds more, he's adding stuff every week. And it gives you information on the shows, on the hosts of the shows, the content. It's a great source if you're looking for more Star Wars fun. So check that out.
Well, and I wanted to piggyback off of you, Aaron, because before we started recording, and in fact, even earlier today, and in fact, in the last couple episodes, I wanted to give a shout out to Daniel Contreras, because after the first episode, when I introduced the Psychology Corner, we just asked people to give us feedback. Is that something you'd want to hear? And is that interesting? Different than other podcasts, to have myself, a clinical psychologist, put that kind of spin or insight into these different episodes. And Daniel responded a few weeks back, and I had forgotten to really give a shout out to him and thank him for being encouraging and saying, yeah, I like that idea, and it is interesting, and keep doing it. So definitely wanted to say that as well to Daniel. And I love what you said about his website there. I wanted to make sure I gave out his Twitter account, just to follow him and support him. And it's similar to what you said. It's at Star Wars Now This. That's his Twitter handle. So major props to you, Daniel. We love you, brother. I also want to give a shout out to Rural Farm Boy. He is another one of those people out in fandom, and Dan Zier's talked about it. You and I've talked about it. These positive, good people out there. There are, there's a small amount of people who are really vocal and negative. Well, you know what? There's a lot of good, positive people out there too. And one of them is Rural Farm Boy. His Twitter address is at a Rural Farm Boy. It does have the R capitalized. I noticed that. I know in mine, I don't know if that matters. I know mine's at David_Motters. Everything's lowercase, but I just want to make sure I pointed that out. And I would say to people, follow Rural Farm Boy. He's a big supporter of other podcasts and always has a nice thing to say. And I just want to make sure I said that as well. So I appreciate those guys and, all of our other listeners over time. And, obviously Amber, who wrote in, right? And I think you were interacting with her about the wine tasting there at the gala. And so it's just really neat to have fans interact with us and listeners. And of course, I want to say I'm fans of these people too, and just seeing what they're doing. So anyways, definitely wanted to do that, Aaron. Hey there, brother, you're on mute.
There we go. How about that? Carabast.
Carabast. There we go.
Oh, there we go, y'all. No, but we want to hear from you, just like we heard from Daniel and Amber. Let us know what you think of the show, of The Mandalorian. You can, of course, hit us up on Twitter, SW Reactions Pod, Facebook, Star Wars Reactions, Instagram, SW Reactions, or email us show@StarWarsReactions.com. Now it is time for David's Psychology Corner.
All right. So this will be the fourth one, right? 4 episodes, fourth Psychology Corner. So here we go. We'll dive in. In this episode, I'm already laughing. We see good and bad. I do quote unquote bad parenting from Mando. So let me explain. In previous reviews, I've talked about Mando ready to have a shootout with Cobb Vanth right in front of Baby Yoda. I remember Cobb Vanth, are we going to do this in front of the kid? And then Mando's like, yeah, he's seen worse. And I'm like, oh, good Lord. He's also taken Baby Yoda to where the Crate Dragon unleashed a massive attack on Mando, Cobb Vanth, Tusker, and those townspeople. He's taken him into a cave filled with massive and dangerous ice spiders. To his credit, he didn't know they were in there, though. He was looking for Frog Lady. And he's taking him into a ship filled with questionable Quarren. That's going to be my new thing, QQ, questionable Quarren. And we see what they do and knock him in and to the Mama Core. And Mama Core swallows the pram, hook, line, and sinker. And fortunately, Bo-Katan and her crew, Casca, let's see, what is it? Casca Reeves, I think, is the name of the Mando. Gets Baby Yoda out of the Mama Core. So we see that. And then, like we said, and I mentioned I was going to talk about this in this episode, it starts off with Mando employing the help of Baby Yoda with some electrical issues. Now, I'm an adult and I'm not messing around with electricity. Electrical and plumbing, I don't touch that in my house. I'm calling a plumber, I'm calling an electrician. I am not playing. Obviously, I would not recommend children playing with live electrical wires. But like we said, in this scene, it's cute, it's funny, and I just really enjoy it. And the big puff of smoke that comes out, in Mando's incredible looking helmet there. But those are parenting. I as a psychologist, I know I just listed off a lot of stuff in every episode, basically, of things we would not do as a parent or as a dad. But later in this episode, we do see Mando make a decision, and you'd mentioned this in the review of Cara Dune and Greef Karga saying not to bring Baby Yoda to the Imperial base. What is Greef Karga? Trust me, you're not going to want to bring him there. And I say emphatically in the show notes here, that's good parenting. Yes, just stay in a safe place, be at school, let the adults take care of business, especially with the bad guys. Towards the end, we mentioned this too. I put just for fun, let's talk about Baby Yoda in the cockpit with Mando as he takes on the ties. Again, as a psychologist, I could not in good conscience give the okay for Baby Yoda to be up there in a dogfight with Mando. I don't know how many of us would do this. We wouldn't put our kids up there in World War II in dogfights. But again, it's a TV show, and I absolutely say this from not a psychologist perspective, but from a Star Wars fan perspective, and I'm both. I love Baby Yoda's excitement with flying. I love him with his hands up. It's infectious, and I just love seeing how excited that little kid is, and being with his dad. And just like you mentioned, Aaron, earlier when he tells Baby Yoda, "Hold on, kid," remind me a little bit of Han Solo's, saying the word "kid." I thought that was kind of cool. By the way, as a dad, I went through a lot of bibs and wipes when my two children spit up over the years, and I see Mando use the end of his cape. I don't know if people saw that. He used the end of his cape to wipe the blue spit up. A lot of different colors came out of my kids too, and I'm sure for both of yours.
Oh yes.
Right. And I would just say this in terms of not being a psychologist and being critical, but just the excitement of having good parents. And I wrote down any young boy or girl would love to fly with their dad or granddad and just live, just that excitement of being alive. And, and it really struck me watching it on Friday, watching it again tonight. And I really thought that Baby Yoda really looked like I felt with my own granddad. He would take me out on the lake up in northern Michigan, and we'd be coming back in, and he'd say, "David," and he'd put the throttle down. And of course, now as an adult, I'm like, I don't even think he sped up that much. but as a kid, I was like, oh my gosh. I was just like Baby Yoda, And he'd always say, "David, we're going to put her in the woods." And I thought, oh my God, my grandfather's going to shoot this boat right up the slip and right into the woods. And my grandma would be very upset. "What are you doing, Ernie?" And I think I was never more alive then. And I'll try not to tear up. But seeing Baby Yoda just that excited, that's how I felt, with my own grandfather. And it's a great thing to see in this episode and very moving. And I hope people have experiences like that, not just with a granddad or their dad, but with their mom and their grandmothers, And so as a psychologist, I took that hat off and was just so excited to see the fun that a dad and a son were having in this episode. So there's the psychology corner for this week.
Excellent. Thank you, David. Thank you. Always informative and insightful. Now, if somebody wants to talk about the psychology corner with you or Star Wars in general, how would they go about doing that, my friend?
Oh yeah, they can hit me up on Twitter. I am at David_Modders. It's always been the same. And then the other one's email. If it's more long form, it's David@StarWarsReactions.com. And I encourage people to do it. I did a long form email to Dan at Coffee with Kenobi, did that, and I also sent it to Riley Blanton at the Star Wars Report, and it was neat because both read it and responded back, and it allowed me to do a longer form email to them just about kind of the sequel trilogy. But I would encourage people to do either one, shorter form with Twitter, longer form with email.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. And of course, if you do want to talk Star Wars or anything with me, you can always hit me up on Twitter at TAHarris121079. Or of course, you can email me anytime, Aaron you said Coffee with Kenobi, and it threw me off. Aaron at StarWarsReactions.com. Carabast. So, David, my friend, thank you very much, buddy. It has been fun as always.
Absolutely, man. Great episode. Not difficult to cover, man. It's all enjoyable and great to react with you tonight.
Absolutely. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening. We appreciate each and every one of you. We're still praying for you. These are definitely going to get better. Just remember that. And we're always here for you. So thank y'all for listening. Remember, this is your place for elegant discussion for a more civilized age.
If you'd like to share your thoughts, you can email us at show@starwarsreactions.com for our show notes and the latest news from the Star Wars universe. Visit our website at www.starwarsreactions.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at SWReactionsPod or on Facebook at Star Wars Reactions. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on iTunes. This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or by Lucasfilm Limited. It's intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars. All names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and the respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Star Wars Reactions unless otherwise indicated. Star Wars Reactions. Elegant discussion for a more civilized age.